Thank you for joining us today for the Kurmi Roadshow. We're going to be talking today about migrating to Webex Calling in all its versions with Kurmi. This is part of it's actually a two-part workshop where we're going to have another one in a few weeks. Hopefully you'll sign up for that and join. My name is Micah Singer. I am the CEO of Kurmi.
Hey, and I'm Kyle O'Neill. I'm the manager of Service Deliveries America for Kurmi Software.
Great. Thanks, Kyle. Good to see you. I'll be speaking a little less technical, and Kyle will be a little more technical. So feel free to as we go through this presentation, to ask us any questions you want in the questions bar in the webinar, and please advance. Yeah, great. Okay, so just briefly, we're going to be talking today about migrations, as you probably are looking for, particularly Cisco Cloud, particularly from Cisco on-prem, HCS, and Call Manager to both and or multi-tenant and dedicated instance. We're going to be talking about, there's going to be a bit of information about why cloud, specifically why Cisco Cloud. We're going to be joined as a recording from Wade Hamblin, who's a director of product at Cisco. We will be, talking in generalities about common migration challenges, and then a little more specifically about customer migration stories, things we've seen in our experience, and why a tool makes sense. We also have an accelerated demo. Migration is actually pretty quick with the tools we provide, but not quick enough to keep your attention for 20 minutes. So we'll be showing you and walking you through, and then we're going to talk about what happens after migration and how a tool like that can provide you service management is useful. Again, I'll say it one more time here: ask questions. We're not going to have time to cover everything, so your questions are important, so we can fill in blanks that you see. Next slide. Briefly about Kurmi. Kurmi has been around 13 years. We provide service management. That's the category. It's unified communications and collaboration, provisioning, and overall service management for UC tools from large vendors. We have a global footprint. We have offices in the US and in France. Customers in over 30 countries, and our target market is large enterprises and also service providers and managed service providers. We provide multiple vendor integrations as part of what we do, and really I think a lot of people say our unique strength is that we're able to automate extremely complex workflows and do it pretty easily for tasks that are repeatable. So what we're hearing is that migration is a priority. Companies say we need a path forward from the system we're on, and it involves change. So this change is communication systems. A lot of Cisco on-prem users are facing just this question. There's a lot of reasons why this is true, but it's and we'll get into that a bit more. But really, in our surveying, this is really number one, way ahead of other requirements for service management.
So IT leaders have kind of identified that migration's the top challenge. It's nothing new, but now with the cloud, we know that there's a real push, and now we have to figure it out. So with any IT process, UC migrations are they're really complex, they're tedious and error prone, and they're time dependent. So these challenges start with, how do we do it? Do we do it all at once for a migration to the cloud, or a staggered approach? How do we make sure that it's successful? How are we going to know that it was successful? And then really, how long is it going to take? Do you have enough runway to make it happen with minimal downtime, time for adoption? So these are all the things on the minds of the IT leaders and the engineers that need to make it helpful, a smooth process. So it's a challenge for sure.
So yeah, I mean, so having been in this business for a while, we work with lots of large enterprises and service providers who are working on UC systems, and over the last 13 years, we see them slowly moving to the cloud, and as we've seen lately, and why we're doing this webinar, is that has accelerated quite a bit. They tend to come to us since they rely on us for service management. And they what we hear specifically, and these are some quotes we've had from customers, is paraphrase is migration is not a one-time problem. It's a new normal. I might be moving slowly. I might be moving from 1 to 2 systems. Certain departments might be moving separately from other departments or other geographies. So it really, rather than a thing you do and then you stop doing, it's a feature of our software. It's service management, and customers, it's important to have it in there because it's another way that they can have control over their users. It's another way that they can protect their data. It's another way that they can save time and automate processes that are complex and prone to errors. And ultimately, it gives you agility, so you can choose which vendors you want to work with, which of the Cisco systems make sense for which users in your shop. So what we see is migration is now a part of service management. So for Cisco in particular, and we work a lot with Cisco, and we have for over a decade, communication and collaboration migration is a real priority. You're going to hear in a moment from Wade at Cisco, but essentially, I mean, like with a lot of vendors, better technology is being delivered on the cloud. So a lot of on-prem systems are being end-of-lifed. So, if you want better integrations, more choices, you want to support a hybrid workforce, you need more and more of the latest features, and these are cloud delivered. Oftentimes, cloud delivery also has a total cost of ownership savings. And ultimately, being in the cloud gives you more flexibility. I mean, you're not making long-term commitments to a big hunk of metal or something on-prem. You have flexibility. So that's what we've seen. We're going to start a video here in a second. So Wade Hamblin is the director of product at Cisco. He's been there quite a while, and he's worked with us. He knows us well. And what we hear from what he's been told as one of his main mandates is the migration, particularly of very large Cisco HCS and call manager clients. So let's take a moment and let's hear what he has to say about the challenge.
What are some of the reasons why organizations would choose to move to Webex calling?
Well, I think there's a lot of reasons why an organization may want to move to the cloud or to Webex calling specifically. And the biggest one is the agility of the platform. What we can do is we can offer customers the ability to move to some of the newer services we're offering, like Webex Go or Customer Experience Essentials to help with new contact center call flows, or the AI enhancements we're making, things like transcriptions and call summaries and action items and those sort of features that'll be coming fast and furious with the cloud. And with the prem, some of those things like the AI features are just really hard to do on prem, and some of the other ones will hit prem eventually, but the agility in getting them up and running is a lot slower. And then just to get on a modern interface is a big key of what we're trying to do. So a lot of good reasons, but those are some of the key ones.
What are some of the challenges they face while migrating?
The biggest thing is a lot of people just think that the migration should just be straightforward and easy to do, plug and play, kind of a cut and paste, copy the old environment, move it to the new. And that's really not the case. There's a lot of things that have to be considered even though both UCM and Webex Calling are both Cisco products, they both came from very different heritages. And so the format of one versus the other, and how things like pickup group works in one versus pickup group in the other are oftentimes very different, and that migration is not straightforward. And that's where Kurmi kind of comes in helping, is helping manage those sort of challenges. And I'll talk to that, I'm sure, in a few minutes.
What has your experience been like working with Kurmi?
We've had a really good relationship with Kurmi over the last few years, several years. Especially, we've kind of been watching Kurmi grow up and become a player within our customer base and to service some of our larger customers. And then it became really important for us when we decided to exit the management business, the prime collaboration business, analytics and provisioning, especially provisioning from a Kurmi perspective. Kurmi worked with us really nicely. They came in, they offered some solutions. They have worked with our customers that are transitioning off those platforms onto the Kurmi platform. And Kurmi just offers a really nice solution that is easy to manage, it's clean, it's a modern interface that can do that. And then recently, Kurmi's just pairing up and thinking about the migration challenge of being able to walk into a customer and turn on the management services and to have a customer be comfortable with that. Because one of the challenges of a customer that's migrating is that they have to go from a management framework that is in UCM based to a management framework that's within Webex Calling, and those are different. And so not only does Kurmi help us do the migration, move a hunt group to a hunt group from one environment to the other, but it also helps in managing those environments where I can have a consistent management framework throughout. And especially customers that are doing not a flash cut, but migration for various groups over time, that interface really takes the pain out, and it also gives a consistent experience throughout the whole migration period instead of disjointed experiences with learning curves throughout. So that's one of the key reasons why Kurmi has been so valuable.
So some of the challenges organizations face, obviously, the old and the new platforms. We have this idea of how is it going to translate into our new system? How do we continue to perform business in the old system while we're migrating? We've got this disjointed, as Wade was saying, where obviously we have some training adoption for our users or admins, and the feature mapping, of course. How do we make sure the hunt groups work the same? We have call center resources that may have special requirements. Translating those functions and features into this new environment is probably the biggest challenge, is making sure everything works perfectly. So for our users, they want to just be able to connect to the new system. Maybe they don't even know that they're connecting to the new cloud environment, and there's no tolerance for having it not work perfectly. So these are of course, some of the setbacks to thinking, how do we do a migration? And by hand, it's a challenge.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I said it earlier. I said, we've been calling what we do service management, and migration slots in as now one of the most important parts of service management, because provisioning, getting people set up usually involves old to new, and more in a cloud world. Moving users is something that happens again and again. Wade mentioned it. Kyle just mentioned it too. Moving call flows, so different call flows, hunt groups, queues. These are things that have lots of dependencies. So when you're moving one user, that user doesn't exist by his or herself. It's something that has to be taken into account. What the other dependencies for that user are. Doing this from multiple portals on multiple systems is tricky. And what Kurmi has offered, and it's become even more relevant in this kind of world, is a single portal for all systems under management. So, in the Cisco world where we operate a lot, this is Call Manager, it's HCS, but more importantly for the future, it's multi-tenant and dedicated instance on Webex. Obviously, we also work with other systems as well, but these are the ones within Cisco Universe that are key to mix and match, and more people are mixing them and matching them. So what are the benefits to having this tool? These are some of our high level benefits we talk about a lot. We have been for years, but some are new, but some, like saving time, is something absolutely automation provides. Migration saves you the most time, I think, because it can be such a time-consuming process. Saving money is also important. So efficient, in a world where a SaaS world where you're consuming based on, or you're being billed based on what you consume, efficient license allocation is really important. Right sizing your price, your license is right sizing your costs. Keeping everyone happy, so reducing errors. No one dies when we screw up, but executives can get quite unhappy, and that's a fail for an IT organization that's tasked with this. And finally, increased adoption is there's a lot of skills required to manage one system, let alone multiple systems. And as Wade mentioned, Cisco has different interfaces and different legacies in their own platform. So it requires a lot of skills, and it's hard to find one person with those skills, but it's not hard to find one piece of software with all those skills, like Kurmi's portal.
Yeah, so exactly, Micah. Some of these enterprises and organizations that I'm about to talk about, they really needed that expert approach, some sort of tool that can have that big brain power to solve these challenges. So I've got a couple examples that I can talk about that our partners, our customers that used our migration tool. One of them is a large university that was on a mega cluster, an old mega cluster of CUCM, and they needed to move to, of course, Webex DI, but they needed to diversify the environments to different groups within this university. So they had a knowledge worker group, they had a call center group, and they had a hospital group. And so we had this challenge of how do we know the dependencies of these users? We need to make sure that the right users are in the right system and make sure that we don't leave anybody behind. So with the Kurmi migration tool, we're able to identify dependencies of a user. My user might be associated to Micah, and Micah's associated to a group that brings along 50 other people. So when we move myself to the new cluster, we're bringing everybody that needs to be with me. So that's what this university utilized through the Kurmi migration tool is to be able to do a staggered migration with some intelligence, moving from that old mega cluster to the Webex DI multiple clusters in a staggered approach. So that's a great success story. The next one, service provider. So they had the migration tool was able to give them a fast-paced migration. So they needed to move very quickly, and they needed to get their users off of maybe like an HCS platform to the Webex DI. So the downtime is not acceptable. The end customers for this service provider, they need to continue to do business. So how do we do that in a very strategic way and very fast? So the migration tool is able to work swiftly, identifying all the dependencies, the dial plan, the very unique things about those things, but also that streamlined cloud type environment that the service providers are providing. The migration tool is able to identify those and move them over very quickly. So that was a very fast deployment through the migration tool, but a lot of users, you can see 100,000 users over 4 months. So that's very quick. On the opposite side of that, we have this European reseller as an example, 30K users. The idea was that they needed an ad hoc approach. They may be rolling out certain groups, but the process could be over a long time. So you see 2.5 years. So the idea of not having to recreate this approach every time, how do we do a migration? Are we doing 100 migrations over 2.5 years? Well, the same process can be used and it can be effortless. So the migrations are the new normal for that customer, and through the tool, they were able to put their effort into making it successful without having to worry about all of the, as I said, the big brain power to make it fit for the migration. So a lot of great success stories there using the migration tool from Kurmi.
Thanks, Kyle. I think you're up to walk us through this accelerated demo. So have a drink of water, catch your breath, and go for it, sir.
I'm ready. So this is going to be fast, but we're starting out with the CUCM Classic to the Webex DI environment. On the source on the left and the target on the right, we can see in the target, the Webex DI, that nothing's there yet, but we're just making sure everything's set up. So back to the Kurmi migration tool, we're loading up all of the data about our source and target, filling in some information, describing the process to the tool. So we're able to download information from our source system, all of the dial plan, the users, the lines, devices, everything that makes that system unique. So the old UCM environment. And so we're going through checking it. Okay, a lot of validation, a lot of inference, a lot of intelligence here. Okay, some warnings, messages. So at this point, Kurmi is able to identify some sites, some logical locations. We can either do a full migration of all sites, or we can choose specific sites to migrate. So we have that granular approach. So we're kind of using that intelligence to now drive another inference, another allocation that's going to identify with that knowledge of the sites, the information that's being collected. So we're reprocessing, and of course, we're going to have things that don't necessarily fit. So in this dashboard, we're able to, as an expert admin, rectify some of these things that could be like, what does this site, where is this country, duplicates, things that are not going to fit, naming conventions, maybe we need to tweak. And in bulk, we can validate those things from the tool and then import it into our logic for this migration job. Okay. So we're updating again, reprocessing. So every step is going to make sure that everything fits. We know that migrations can fail very easily if we didn't validate all the things. So the logic, the intelligence here in the migration tool gives us the ability to check and make sure everything's going to be perfect on that Monday morning. So even here, we're resolving users, some app users, some naming conventions that don't quite fit, revalidating. We can export some of this information from the tool. We can use that later. So there can be exports for records, what was migrated, put it into our SharePoint, and download that information. So some historical data. Number ranges are all inferred from the tool. Sites, which aren't a logical thing in CUCM sometimes, but here we have the intelligence to do that. So we're revalidating the data, checking our checks. Okay, looks good. Now we can say these sites are the ones we want to do. Okay, so we can begin to prepare the migration, everything that's involved with those sites, the dial plan, the phone button template, the users, the lines, devices, the groups, the pickup groups, the buttons on the phone. Everything is thought about here. And all of the commands, the sequencing, the right order of operations that the Cisco admins would know are thought out in this tool. So more validation, making sure everything lines up. Yeah, checking for duplicates. We can resolve it right here. And we're doing a lot of validation, but we want to be precise. So this is a very fine-tuned process. And we can load the sites, and we're ready to start that migration. Okay, so now Kurmi from the simulation is now pushing that data, everything again in that right order, the right sequencing that we know as Cisco experts or the Cisco engineers will know the right process. So it's validating, checking users, lines, devices, the groups, the dial plan. In each step, some checks, validation. It's looking great so far. Okay. And now we're in Kurmi. So the migration's completed and daily management is ready. So in step, we are able to see our users that have been migrated. Everything's lining up. We can begin to do the daily management as we are fully migrated those sites on Webex DI. So that was great. It was quick, but we estimate for about 1,000 users, maybe it's 20 minutes to perform that migration. So, everything's kind of thought out there. We can just sit back and relax at that point. So.
Okay, I think my blood pressure just went up a little listening to you talk so quick, Kyle. But great job. I know we really wanted to show the whole process or all the clicks on a migration. I think that was really important. So we did speed it up, but hopefully you can do this and it'll have just the opposite effect. It'll lower your blood pressure because there'll be fewer errors. Thank you for doing that for us. The summary before we get to some questions are the features that we're offering in service management are, I'd say the list is grown in the last few years by one notable one. I mean, the top four here are managing users, creating, deleting, making changes, what were called MACDs back in the day, assigning and managing phone numbers, performing bulk operations where you get to choose how things are bulked up, by any fields, location, users that use certain features, departments, etc. So tons of flexibility there. Delegation, slicing and dicing how you give access to limit access generally to people who only need to have it, admins in certain areas or people without security clearances. And now, and the one we talked about a lot today is managing current and future UC migrations. So these, I mean, there's when you dig in, there's a lot of other features within Kurmi, but these are the ones that we end up talking about. And I would say based on what we're hearing, that manage future UC migrations is moving towards the top of the list, if not at the top of the list nowadays, because of so much migration from on-prem to cloud. And the final slide is with these features, what are the benefits? I think they're largely, like I talked about a moment ago, it's time savings, and time is important. More and more IT means more and more challenges and complexity, and more knowledge that people have to keep in their head, or it means smart software to help out, saves you the time. With the license world that is SaaS based and license based, costs can spiral out. I know personally, I'm always paying for subscriptions I never use. It doesn't add up to much, but when you're a 5,000 person company or an institution, it adds up pretty quick. Errors are an ongoing thorn in any IT person's side. Always the goalkeeper trying to avoid problems. And so it's nice to have some smart software-based assistant to help you. And finally, I mean, just in general, these things all empower the IT teams to do more with less, which seems to be the mandate of the world we live in. That's our presentation on migration and service management. I did notice there were a few questions that have come in, and while we're answering them, feel free to ask other ones. Let me just flip over to them. Kyle, there's one here that maybe you should answer. Is there a limit of resources or objects that you can manage or migrate using a single instance of Kurmi?
I mean, with enough horsepower, I don't think there's a real limit. We saw 100,000 objects in one of our use cases, so I think that the range is known that's very high. So let's test it. But as far as I know, it's not really a limitation.
I think I've heard in our lab we've gone up to 1 million, and which is a lot. Covers most companies in the world. But also we do. Generally, for larger deployments, we run a sandbox and we make that accessible to service providers and clients.
Yeah, I think that the key takeaway is that staggered approach. Even if we're connecting to 1 million objects in a system, we can break it down into smaller chunks. So it's more manageable that way, and it probably has an effect on that horsepower, that intelligence back there. So staggered approach is probably the way to solve that challenge, but 1 million objects is probably big enough for most of our customers.
So this other one, and I knew this was going to happen. People would ask technical questions, and I would become irrelevant here. How does the workflow change when you're migrating to a different or multiple different platforms?
Yeah, so I think that there's some cooperation between our expert admin using the tool and the Kurmi intelligence behind that. When we're doing an approach where one site is moving to, say, environment A in the cloud, and then group B is moving to environment B, well, that's easy to sequence. So that approach is probably very divisible. Where we might need to split them up, I think that requires that expert admin to find those users that need to be put into the specific group. So with the Kurmi tool, with the Kurmi team, I think that there's some technique involved, but ultimately the tool is ready to handle those different divisions and challenges.
Yeah, and I'll just say that, I mean, we're a software company, but we still do professional services work, and there are levels of complexity where you want that kind of assurance of a human before you push a button. And that's not uncommon for larger organizations. So it, trust but verify kind of thing, and
absolutely,
that's what we recommend. Can Kurmi facilitate migrations other than to Webex calling? Absolutely. I mean, we, on one of our slides, you saw the systems we work with. I mean, there's some legacy systems that not a lot of people are migrating to, like Alcatel-Lucent and Avaya. And then there's some newer systems that people are migrating to, which are generally Microsoft Teams and Zoom. We still see a lot of interest, and a lot of larger businesses are Cisco shops, and some of the products from Cisco are great, and the cloud ones offer a real a lot of migration opportunities, especially for power users of telephony services and collaboration services. Is there a version requirement for Kurmi? Which versions will this work with? And this must be from someone who's already our customer.
Yeah, well, we're compliant with Webex Calling, Webex DI with our latest version. So I don't believe so. Probably best to be on our latest releases, but I think that we're probably backwards compatible with a lot of versions of Kurmi. So the migration tool will sit side by side with that integration. So I believe we're safe on many of our customers with existing Kurmi platforms.
Okay, great. Well, I really want to, actually one more question just came in. Can Kurmi handle local PSTN gateways configured on Control Hub?
Yeah, I think that's a takeaway. We have a lot of abilities with FXS, FXO ports, but let's get some information back on that one.
Yeah, deeper answer. Thank you for asking the questions. Thank you all for that. Thank you for your attention for a little over 30 minutes. Hopefully you got something out of it. If you want to learn more, you can scan this nifty QR code. We'd be happy to talk to you. Kurmi is always a consultative sale. So it's a lot about learning what you need and matching it up with what we do. There's no cost to walk through the consultative process, and often it's quite advantageous. Thank you so much, and have a great day, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.